cannon fodder in exchange for technology. North Korea may send additional troops to Russia to participate in the war against Ukraine as early as August. In return, Moscow promises Pyongyang technology for satellite launches and missile guidance.
Currently, the primary and overarching idea behind supplying North Korean personnel to Moscow is for the North Korean regime to gain invaluable experience in waging this entirely new and evolving type of technological warfare, which is becoming increasingly prevalent and sophisticated.
South Korean intelligence believes that Russia is planning a major offensive operation against Ukraine in August, and the possible involvement of North Korean units is directly related to these plans. Moreover, Pyongyang has already begun a new mobilization of troops to be sent to Russia. In addition, North Korea is supplying Russia with artillery shells and missiles, and in return is receiving technical assistance, according to military experts. However, even without North Korean reinforcements, the occupiers are trying to advance on the front. Russian forces continue to exert pressure and over the past day have advanced in two regions, Kharkiv and Donetsk. Particularly heavy fighting is currently taking place near the Volchansk Khutors in the Kharkiv region, as well as near Yablonovka and Orekhovo in the Donetsk region. At the same time, a report from the Institute for the Study of War states that the Ukrainian armed forces have recently advanced in the Sumy region and in the Kharkiv area. In particular, sources linked to Ukrainian intelligence reported that Ukrainian defenders have retaken Kondratovka, located north of the city of Sumy. Meanwhile, Russian military correspondents claim that the Ukrainian armed forces have counterattacked near Varachin, Satki and Yunakovka. Ukrainian forces have recently advanced in the north of Sumy region and near Veliki Burluk and Lyman. Russian troops have recently made advances near Siversk, Toretsk, Novopavlivka and Velika Novosilka. However, such minor advances come at a very high cost for the occupiers. For example, for the first time in a long while, the Russians deployed armored vehicles in the Pokrovsk direction. But here's the problem: the column was destroyed by precise artillery fire from drones. First, the vehicles at the head of the column were hit by cannon fire, after which the UAV operators took over. Despite the fact that the Russian armored vehicles were equipped with anti-drone protection, enemy equipment was burned and the offensive was halted through drops and attacks using FPV drones. It is also reported that, during the repulsion of the occupiers' attacks, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to eliminate the commander of the 83rd Motorized Rifle Regiment of the 69th Motorized Rifle Division of the Russian Army, Colonel Lebedev, who was leading the assault on the Kharkiv region. The occupier was specifically responsible for the new offensive direction near the village of Milov, where the Russians began their advance a few weeks ago. As a result, yet another assault attempt ended, with the enemy losing their commander.
You know, if we talk about every Russian swan, there will always be a Swan Lake for each of them. That I can definitely guarantee on behalf of the defense forces. The commander of the assault regiment, of course, we see that dealing with these Russians is certainly not getting any easier.
Things aren't going well for the invaders in the skies either. In the past 24 hours, our soldiers managed to bring down at least 17 Russian reconnaissance drones. The occupiers also lost quite a bit of their heavy equipment over the past day. Not a day goes by without strikes, even inside Russia itself. Due to our drone attacks, railway operations there have been disrupted, trains are delayed and airports are not functioning. This time the strike hit the Volgograd region. It is along this route that Russia transports military cargo to the front. Local Telegram channels are also publishing footage of a fire at the local oil depot. Hits were also recorded there, but the information has not been officially confirmed by Russia. In addition to the Volgograd region, explosions occurred in 12 other regions and in annexed Crimea. The Kremlin claimed that 99 drones were allegedly shot down. Due to the attack, more than 70 flights were cancelled or delayed at Pulkovo airport. And now a major announcement from Vilnius: Lithuania is helping Ukraine purchase an additional Patriot system. The country's defense minister announced the intention to join the procurement of American air defense systems for Kyiv. Lithuania plans to allocate up to 30 million euros to achieve this goal. Let me remind you, recently US President Donald Trump announced the transfer of Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine with the support of NATO countries, assuring that Kyiv would receive 17 such systems. And the first of them was provided to us by Germany. The Bundestag sent 3 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine and is negotiating the delivery of a 4th. In total, Berlin is ready to provide us with as many as 5 systems. There is also discussion about the possibility of Germany supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles. The front has been left without communication. Starlinks are not working. The Russians admitted that Pokrovsk could not be taken and began an offensive on a neighboring city. A new regiment of Kadyrovites is being prepared to be sent to Zaporizhzhia. But even beyond the border, no one believes in the success of Russia's summer offensive anymore. What is life like on the front today? Watch right now.
More than 2 hours without communication at the positions, without data transmission from reconnaissance drones, and without any understanding of what is happening at neighboring positions. The night before, Starlink stopped working en masse on the front.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
It turns out the entire military system is paralyzed, and this particular unit simply doesn't understand what it should do, doesn't know what's happening in the neighboring unit. There are no orders to advance, to retreat, or to attack. There is no information at all. In short, they suddenly find themselves in an information vacuum.
Fortunately, the vacuum didn't last long. 2.5 hours later, the satellites picked up the signal again. It turned out that it wasn't even Russian sabotage, but a global system failure. It was reported that the outage did not affect the situation on the front line. There were no changes in the hottest spot of the war today, Pokrovsk. The city is battered, exhausted, but unbroken. Having recently cleared out Russian saboteurs here, the Ukrainian armed forces made it clear that any assaults on these positions would cost Russia thousands of casualties. And it seems they've gotten the message. Along with the endless shelling of Pokrovsk, it was decided to intensify assault operations on neighboring Kostiantynivka.
Kostiantynivka is not just another random town in Donetsk region, but one of the main focal points of the enemy's efforts. After all, according to the invaders, its role as a logistical hub makes it the key not only to Pokrovsk, but to all the cities in western Donetsk region, such as Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, and Chasiv Yar.
At the same time, the former commander-in-chief and now Ukraine's ambassador to the UK, Valery Zaluzhny, gave his forecast on how long such assaults might continue and when the war as a whole could end. Unfortunately, the forecasts are not encouraging.
If we only try to achieve a ceasefire without building up our own defenses for the future, then this will drag on for a long, long time, and having started in 2014, God willing, it might only end in 2034.
At the same time, analysts clarify that when Zaluzhny mentions such timeframes, he is taking into account Russia's current economic situation, the present level of support from partners, and in particular from the United States. And he is by no means talking about the same level of intensity of the war as we see today, lasting throughout the entire period.
Of course, the intensity of the fighting can change. It can decrease, it can drop to zero under certain ceasefire conditions, and it can rise, again becoming very intense once more. The war can take on a hybrid character. All of this is true, but that's only under one condition. If Russia remains a unified state, because the prospect of Russia breaking apart as a result of various internal processes and failures at the front does exist.
We should also not forget that Russia's resources are not unlimited, and as it turns out, neither are its human resources. Losing 1,000 soldiers a day, the Russian General Staff has fought itself into a position where, for the first time in the past 2 years, Putin is once again forced to ask Kadyrov for help. At the very least, the most recent regiment of reservists was recruited specifically in Chechnya.
Again, regarding who was recruited into this regiment, which in my opinion may indeed become a certain reserve reinforcement for enemy attacks, particularly in the Zaporizhzhia direction. That's quite possible. As for how effective it will be, I think we'll find out about that in the near future. If this regiment is actually deployed in combat operations and not just filming another series for TikTok,
But even that is not enough for what the bunker dweller has in mind. Analysts are convinced the demands concerning the 4 Ukrainian regions are far from matching what Russia is showing on the battlefield. Through inhuman efforts, the defense forces managed to hold back Putin's mercenaries, and their inability to capture even Pokrovsk for over a year is a vivid confirmation of that.
Putin doesn't have the reserves or resources for this offensive to end in any kind of significant success, aside from a few hundred meters here and there, or some isolated village that they managed to capture. At the same time, the armed forces of Ukraine are also liberating, so to speak, a few hundred meters or some village as well. That's how it's going to continue until the end of summer. This will be the result of Putin's much hyped summer offensive.
Obviously, this is understood in Russia as well, which is why they are trying to delay as much as possible the moment when concrete decisions will actually have to be made. For example, as it became known, the Russian delegation in Istanbul proposed to create not just 1 but 3 negotiation groups at once and to replace a ceasefire with short truces to collect the wounded and the dead. In short, yet another sham in the best Moscow traditions.
It is obvious that having secured such a pause, such a break on the front as a bonus, the Russians will use it to strengthen themselves. What does this mean for us in the end? It ends with us losing positions, that is, our territories. It ends with losses of killed and wounded on our side. I think that Ukraine cannot afford to step on the same rake again and repeat the same mistake.
Fortunately, this trick didn't work even for the main viewer across the ocean, Donald Trump. The states made it clear that pretending there is peace is not worth it. Either there is real silence on the front or there will be sanctions. There are 40 days left until the end of Trump's ultimatum to Putin,